Welcome to Bet the Edge, Blitzing the Board, powered by PointsBet. I am your host, Sara Perlman, and we are back hunting for value in Week 5 with actionable betting insights and analysis. You can catch our show live on YouTube at 3 p.m. Eastern or on Peacock up until kickoff on Sunday. I am joined by two of the sharpest and betting football minds in the industry, Warren Sharp, founder of Sharp Football Analysis, and Drew Dinsick, professional handicapper and lead analyst for NBC Sports EDGE. Drew is back despite having a bye week from the show. He was still giving out winners on Twitter. Drew went 4-1 picking sides last week. Good to have you back. Warren, Drew, what's going on? How we doing?
Doing great. Looking forward to the games this weekend. I said last week it was going to be a disgusting, ugly board, and that's what exactly happened. A lot of unders. And I like this board a little bit better. I think that there's some nice marquee matchups that we get to talk about and grill our PointsBet friend Jay Croucher later on in the show. So I'm looking forward to that already.
Yeah, and certainly it was a nice week to be on the underdogs. We had a couple of underdog money line winners come through, which is always exciting. And looking at the injury news this week has been wild. There has been some surprises. There's been some actionable information come across here in the last 24 hours that's really starting to shape the market. So going to be a very exciting Week 5.
Now, Warren, you did say it was an ugly board last week. You did come on and give out winners, maybe in the ugliest game, in my opinion, of all. Now, coming up today, we're tracking the latest Jimmy Garoppolo injury news and how we're attacking 49ers Cardinals if Trey Lance starts. Plus, we have plays to attack Bills Chiefs on Sunday Night Football, which features the highest total on the board for the weekend. Also, our NBC Sports Predictor app powered by PointsBet is giving you a chance to win $160,000 this week, and it's free to play. We'll tell you how you can get involved in the action. And as always, as Warren alluded, Jay Croucher from PointsBet will join us live to reveal what the book is rooting for this weekend. But to kick it off, we begin with what we're watching heading into Sunday for Week 5. And with a quarter of the season almost finished, we are checking in on the futures market. There is only one unbeaten team left in the NFL. And just like we all predicted, guys, it's the Arizona Cardinals, 4-0. Now, while the Cardinals are still tied with the Rams to win the NFC West at plus 165, quarterback Kyler Murray, now the MVP frontrunner at plus 425. Drew, is this a fair price for Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals? If not, who and what are you looking at?
So this is not to say that Kyler Murray's performance to this point in the season hasn't been extremely impressive. It has been. However, it's important to remember and recognize that these markets are very, very immature. You know, it's not how you start, it's how you finish when it comes to awards voting. This time last year, Russell Wilson was seemingly a lock for this award, ended up not getting any first place votes whatsoever. So the idea that Kyler Murray is going to be able to carry this performance through the remainder of the season, considering how difficult their schedule is, particularly within the NFC West, I find tough to believe. I still think this is Pat Mahomes' award to lose. And in fact, looking at the current prices, if you wanted me to take a second choice beyond Pat Mahomes, I am very interested in a price on Lamar Jackson right now. The Baltimore Ravens have a nice little 5-week stretch where they do not have to leave Baltimore. After that, they have a couple of very winnable games on the road. So realistically, they could be looking at a 10-1 record once we get to about Thanksgiving, at which point in time, Lamar Jackson almost certainly will be in the top 5 choices. So him in the 20 to 25 to 1 range interests me greatly. But again, ultimately, I do think that this is Pat Mahomes' award to lose, and this may be the lowest price, the best price you see on him for the remainder of the season.
So certainly the advice would be to stay away from Kyler Murray as the short favorite at plus 425 through 4 weeks of the NFL. Looking at Lamar Jackson getting ready for a good game this weekend right now at the 20 to 25 range. A quick rising star up the coaching ranks is Chargers head coach Brandon Staley, who is currently at plus 550 to win Coach of the Year on PointsBet. Those are the shortest odds, just edging out Cliff Kingsbury, who's in second. Warren, I'm going to give you the floor on this one. What is Staley doing so well, and what will make you more inclined to bet more on the Chargers as we get deeper into the season?
Well, at this price, I'm not interested in betting on Brandon Staley, but I do think he is obviously endearing himself to the betting public, the football media public, with some of the comments that he's come out with. He's basically towing the line, talking about, the benefit of the run game, while still you don't have to use the run game to set up play action. It does help in certain areas. And so he's endearing himself to the analytics crowd. He's endearing himself to the football guy type crowd. And I think he's doing a great job of politicking, right? If this was an award, he's kind of politicking as best he can to try to get those votes. From that respect, they do have an easy schedule after this game upcoming. They play the Baltimore Ravens, and then they have a nice stretch to close the season. Obviously, they've already upset the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead, so that was a big victory for them. That said, I don't see enough value at this point in time. I 100% agree with Drew's general sentiment in the marketplace just after the first month, and that is that you don't have to go crazy betting futures right now. You're really looking for, if you find something in season, something that's just completely mispriced. That's really kind of you're trying to attack. You're not looking to throw darts at this point, and you're not looking at betting the favorites in these markets either, unless you completely see it mispriced, which I don't. So I probably am doing nothing on the future of the Chargers, Brandon Staley to win Coach of the Year.
From Coach of the Year, we go to Rookie of the Year. We have been talking about Rookie of the Year since day one, but there is no better time to revisit this award, because in week 5, we may and very well see all 5 first-round rookie quarterbacks starting for the first time. Drew, you and I got ourselves some Mac Jones tickets in our back pocket, but what do you have on this Rookie of the Year race so far that might appear more than the other awards to be wide open?
Well, surely some of these prices I'd have a very tough time seeing as fair, notably the Jamar Chase and the Najee Harris prices. I think this is going to ultimately be a quarterback award. It will ultimately go to whichever of these 5 really can distinguish themselves down the stretch. I thought, and you as well as you, that Mac Jones was in the best situation to do that, considering he was with Belichick. He had an offensive line that we were expecting to be top 5, but clearly Belichick not showing the confidence to give Mac Jones the opportunity to convert that 4th down was tough. I'm going to stick with him as my pick, even at the short price of 3-1 here, just because I don't think Trevor, Justin, or Trey are going to have the chance to win enough games here down the stretch. But the Trey Lance we'll get to later at plus 850 isn't crazy to add to your portfolio if you're betting into this market, just because I do think if he can do well in the absence of Jimmy Garoppolo, he may be able to secure this job permanently for the rest of the season.
Warren, we're going to get into Justin Fields a little bit later. Quick thoughts on 8-1 now that he's the starter?
I like him. I think this is just a very muddy market, and there's so many guys that are going to produce performances. I agree with Drew that Justin Fields is not going to win enough games to really make a bold statement, but I think the fact that now he actually has a real offense coordinator calling plays instead of Matt Nagy, that's going to definitely help his case a lot, and we'll talk about that momentarily.
Yeah, we absolutely will. But we do begin with our games of the week. And Warren, we're going to start to your preview for your game of the week, which happens to be the Browns and the Chargers. This line open with the Browns favored by 1 and the total at 49.5. Then a little flip here as the Chargers are now the 1-point favorite and the total has ticked down to 47. What exactly are you analyzing in this matchup that you like to handicap in this one?
Well, one of the things, this is a fluid show, and there's a lot of things that we do over the course of the week from a betting perspective. We're betting constantly. And one of the things that I took in this game earlier, and, the group that I work with, obviously Drew, I'm sure does the same with his, we're able to move numbers on the board, and we bet under 48.5 in this game. And that's why you see this total sitting at 47. I think a lot of people look at this game and they see the high flying abilities of Justin Herbert, and they see the great offensive minded coach of Kevin Stefanski, and they think we're going to get a lot of points here. And maybe that happens, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think that this game features 2 top 10 defenses that both play in a similar capacity, in that they're trying to prevent the big explosive plays. They are trying to keep you playing small ball, matriculate the ball down the field. You as an offense, don't make the mistake. You as an offense, don't get a holding penalty. Don't take a sack, because those types of things are very difficult for offenses to overcome. We're not going to give you the 25 to 35 yard big pass play down the field to flip the field very quickly. I see both of these teams are with their defenses that are capable of doing that. You got Baker Mayfield. The first couple of games, they were putting up points, basically 30 points in each of those games. The last couple of games, not so much. And then we're hearing just today, it leaked out the Browns didn't want it to get out. They were trying to keep keep it under wraps, but the official nature of Baker Mayfield's shoulder injury. Now, I don't think that changes anything. Brandon Staley and his defense for the Chargers obviously knew that Baker Mayfield wasn't quite 100%, but it really showed itself in a couple of those downfield throws against the Minnesota Vikings last week. He had Odell Beckham Jr. wide open, and you just couldn't connect with him down the football field. I think that they're going to be able to condense this thing even further and apply the pressure there. On the flip side of things, look, Justin Herbert, they could be attacking deeper down the field. I'm not quite sure why they're not, but on early downs, this team is content with playing this small ball style, which is very ironic because this is what Brandon Staley wants to force other offenses to do. And yet his own offense is content with doing that and limiting Justin Herbert's downfield passing. But they actually rank 10th worst in points scored per minute of possession. They're just very comfortable having the ball, keeping possession, and slowly moving it down the field. I'm hoping that we're not going to see a ton of Nick Chubb gaining big chunk plays and flipping field position very quickly because I'm worried about the Chargers' run defense. All in all, though, I do think there's going to be a fair amount of running, a fair amount of high completion percentage passes, and the clock's just going to be ticking, and I'm hoping that we get through this game going under the 47 points.
Well, certainly running the ball does seem like their rightful scheme. As you mentioned, the Browns now have 4 straight games this year with 150 or more rushing yards. For the total perspective, the under 12-4 in the last Chargers 16 home games. Drew, I know throughout the week on Bet the Edge on our show, you talked about liking the Browns in this spot. Why?
Yeah. The injury news has not gone with me, liking the Browns, but the Browns are going to win the battle in the trenches on both sides of the football. And if it does come down to the running game, I have much more confidence that if the Browns have a late lead, they're going to be able to put it away. This may be a lot of a replay of what we saw against them on the road against the Minnesota Vikings. And I think Warren's look on the under was quite sharp as well. So I will be on that. But for me, Browns money line, I think, is a fair play.
It's time for your game of the week, Drew, which happens to be the Packers in Cincinnati playing the Bengals. Lined open at Packers -3.5. We now look at a Packers laying 3, so some money came in on Cincinnati. The total, unlike the previous game, has ticked up, opened at 49. We're now looking at an over-under of 50.5 on the board. What is your favorite way to get involved with this Packers game, Drew?
Yeah, it is very, very tough for me to make a fair price close to 3 here. I have decent value on the Packers, even if I assume that Cincinnati, with extra time to prepare, Cincinnati, the more healthy team, I cannot get to 3. We saw in the preseason, we were expecting the look-ahead line here was going to be Green Bay -6.5 on the road. And yes, this is a difficult spot for them. They'll be traveling for the second straight week. However, going to Pittsburgh, going to Cincinnati from Green Bay, that's not particularly arduous travel, so that doesn't really spook me much. There have been some notable injuries in terms of the pass rush for the Green Bay Packers, but the Green Bay Packers don't really get it done with their pass rush anyway. They're much more inclined in the Joe Barry system to sit back and to use extra guys in coverage to try to confuse and to try to create turnovers via interceptions than they are try to really put pressure on you via pass rush. And so ultimately, this may end up being a reasonably close contest. However, if you're going to give me Aaron Rodgers versus Joe Burrow, who is still finding his form, who is still trying to figure out what he is being asked to do in this offense, I will happily back Aaron Rodgers at the very short price of -3. Realistically, Green Bay, although they have been dealing with injuries on their offensive line, this offensive line is still winning their pass blocking 1v1s week in, week out. And a lot of that has to do with Aaron Rodgers himself and the way he is directing the offensive line. I would expect that he has all the time that he needs in the back, in the pocket to be able to execute a solid offensive game plan. Obviously, there is no matchup on earth for Devontae Adams right now. And realistically, some of the pieces around him are starting to show some signs of improvement as well. I am somewhat concerned about the absence of Jair Alexander. However, that is not enough to scare me away from taking Green Bay at a flat 3, which I think is a somewhat disrespectful price considering how the level that Aaron Rodgers is performing at from last season into this season, continuing through this game against a somewhat unproven Bengals team. So Green Bay -3, it is for me. And I also have a position on the over here, considering that this is probably going to be a relatively high scoring contest, considering who is out on defense for Green Bay.
I'd have to agree with you there in the sense that the Alexander injury might be what's scaring people off and taking that 3.5 with the Bengals. Warren, how are you evaluating this game?
I think it's a tough game. I have not played the side or total in this one. I definitely see Drew's points for liking the Green Bay Packers here. It's going to be interesting to see the style and the tactics that this Cincinnati Bengals offense chooses to take with Zach Taylor, because they've been a run-focused team, relying on Joe Mixon and then passing off of that. And if they fall into a hole early against Aaron Rodgers, keep in mind, Aaron Rodgers is Green Bay Packers team, the best first half, the best first quarter offense that we see in terms of being able to put up points quickly. If they're able to get up quickly and force the Cincinnati Bengals to become a little bit more one-dimensional, especially without having confidence in the run game, how do they fare? I mean, obviously there's some positives with that injury to Jair Alexander, but there's also some negatives of being so one-dimensional, inviting that pass rush quite frequently.
I will agree with Drew here that I talked about all week on our Bet the Edge podcast. I like the Packers. Get an edge with our premium betting tools, which you can get a glimpse of throughout the show, that are packed with live odds, betting trends, predictions, player prop projections, our extensive edge finder, so much more. Don't forget to use the promo code BLITZ10 to get 10% off any annual subscription. We will continue breaking down the rest of the NFL slate when we come back.
NBC Sports Edge Plus, home to everything fantasy, DFS, and betting. With premier tools and exclusive insights that are second to none. Get fantasy predictions, rankings, and betting trends. Plus news and analysis from our experts. Play with confidence today. Visit NBCSportsEdge.com/learn.
Hey, what's up? It's Corey Parson here for NBC Sports Edge, getting you ready for Week 5 of the NFL season, where the Carolina Panthers are 3.5-point home favorites versus the Philadelphia Eagles. I understand this Panther team has playoff aspirations, but I'm catching the points with the Philadelphia Eagles. Under Matt Rule, the Panthers are 4-6 ATS on their home field. Don't forget to check out our sports betting tools on NBC Sports Edge, and once again, bet with your head and not over your head.
Another beauty on Sunday Night Football. And don't touch that dial.
That's sensational.
What a play.
Holy smokes.
Welcome to AP Bio. Ready to begin?
You're a tiger.
Uniforms promote conformity. You're going to turn these kids into cults.
We're really getting somewhere now.
Yeah. We are officially in a tornado warning.
We're all dead. No, we're dead.
Do not live in fear.
Dad!
Where's my son, Jack?
Are you Mr. Griffin?
I suppose I am.
Dad?
Welcome back to Blitzing the Board. We now go between the lines where both Warren and Drew have identified a matchup they are looking to attack in Week 5. And Warren, we will start with you here because we mentioned earlier that Justin Fields has been announced as the Bears starter for the rest of the season by head coach Matt Nagy. Now that he's got the job and they are playing the Raiders, where the Raiders are laying 5.5, opened at 5, what should we expect to see from Justin Fields this week?
A real offense coordinator calling plays, designing an offense, playing to his strengths, as opposed to being shoved a square peg in a round hole and expecting to do something that he can't really do. So that's this for starters. It makes me feel better about Justin Fields, and I'm happy for him personally. Bill Lazor is now calling the plays for this offense. He's helping design things more. I'm expecting that we're going to see a lot of what we saw last week, but just refined a little bit. We're going to see more 12 personnel, more 6+ man protections along the line to help keep Justin Fields a little bit more upright in the pocket. We're going to continue to see those deep shots down the field, testing this Raiders secondary. You know what's interesting about this Raiders defense is the last 3 teams that they face, I don't know why Justin Herbert is not doing this again, but he's only throwing, I think it's 13% of his passes, 15+ yards in the air. And then prior to that, the Raiders defense went up against Jacoby Brissett and Ben Roethlisberger. Both of those guys are down at 12% of their passes going 15+ yards in the air. You know where Justin Fields was last week? 34% of his passes traveled 15+ yards in the air. This Raiders secondary really hasn't been tested, but in order to complete those passes, you need enough time in the pocket, and that's going to be the trick. I'm expecting them to roll him out a little bit bit more, get him on the edge where he has the option to throw or take off as a check down and just use his own legs and run with the football. They're going to need to rely a little bit more on him in the ground game because they're without their number one running back as well. So life is not roses for this Chicago Bears offense, and we shouldn't expect all of a sudden this massive influx of points and efficiency on the offensive side of the ball. Justin Fields still has areas that he's struggling in, and he's still a young quarterback who's going to need to find his way in the NFL. But it is great for him that he has a coach that now is going to be calling the plays, that knows what he's doing and plays to his strengths. Overall, I think that the Chicago Bears can bang a little bit here with this Raiders team. I'm excited to see this game. I think they have the ability to connect on some of these deeper plays and put up enough points on this board to either keep the game close or potentially go over the total. But I'm hoping that this thing drops a little bit more before we do anything on the total.
Haven't bet anything in this game, but like you, I'm really fired up to see Justin Fields now with an offense more built for him getting ready for this game. Drew, the total has ticked down. This was 45.5, 44. I mentioned the line opened at 5, now sitting at 5.5. Raiders favored at home. Have you gotten involved in this game?
I hadn't. I passed, even though my numbers suggested that Chicago was the right side. But to be honest with you, after Warren's breakdown, I'm kind of thinking Bears here. My fair price on this one would be 3.5. So the fact that you're getting a little bit of value with the current market at 5.5 suggests that the Bears are worth a second look. Realistically, what Las Vegas showed us on Monday Night Football was wildly unimpressive. Very clearly, Derek Carr reverted to his old ways, where if you can generate interior pass pressure on him, he turns back into a pumpkin. If there's one strength with the Chicago team on defense, it is clearly their defensive line. So I'm going to give this one a second look in light of the news about Fields and the way that they intend to utilize him in the offense.
Staying with you, Drew, for your matchup, and what you targeted is the San Francisco 49ers playing the Cardinals, which, by the way, opened at the Cardinals 3.5. The total did open on the board at 53.5. We're now looking at the Cardinals laying 5 and the total at 50. Now, with Jimmy G currently dealing with a calf contusion, the door may have opened for 49ers rookie quarterback Trey Lance to get his first start of the season on Sunday. But Kyle Shanahan's game plan for either Jimmy G or Trey Lance could look drastically different. For the latest update from the 49ers facility, we're going to kick it to Matt Mayoko from NBC Sports Bay Area.
The San Francisco 49ers are preparing this week as if quarterback Trey Lance will make his first NFL start. And that's because Trey Lance is healthy and Jimmy Garoppolo is not. Garoppolo started the first 4 games for the 49ers, and Coach Kyle Shanahan has not wavered that Garoppolo is the team's starting quarterback. But Garoppolo's availability to face the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday is very much in question due to a calf injury. The 49ers have not ruled out Garoppolo from playing, but Garoppolo himself says if he were cleared to play, he would have to battle through that injury. He does not necessarily sound like a player who expects to be on the field this weekend.
Cardinals are laying 5 points. I happen to like the Niners in this spot with Trey Lance going to assume he's getting the start on Sunday. Drew, your thoughts and what's your plan of attack for this matchup?
Well, I'm with you that the Niners are the right side, and I'm with you in not just expecting, but hoping that we see Trey Lance at long last here. And he has a decent matchup against this Arizona team that I think is very susceptible to the RPO. I would love to see them utilize Trey Lance in a very perfect offense for Shanahan's system. Virtually going to be unstoppable on the ground if that's what they elect to roll out. He had some moments in relief against the Seattle Seahawks where he was not sharp with the pass, but with a full week of practice and preparation, and with some of what we've heard about his physical tools from the preseason, I would absolutely expect Trey Lance to be able to acquit himself fairly in his first ever NFL start. Let's talk a little bit more about this number, though. So this is a number we expected in the preseason to be around a pick'em, but we expected before last week that the look ahead was Arizona -2.5. They open it up on the other side of 3. It gets bet out to Arizona Arizona -6, which is an enormous overreaction to the first 4 weeks of the season, and Arizona being the last 4-0 team. Realistically, our preseason priors tell us that the difference between San Francisco and Arizona is marginal. If anything, San Francisco is the better team overall. San Francisco has suffered a number of injuries this season, most notably to their secondary, and I do not discount that. However, realistically, with the unexpected nature that they bring to their offense in this matchup, and with Fred Warner, potentially the perfect guy that you want on the other side of the football to defend Kyler Murray, with the edge rush that San Francisco brings against a relatively weak set of tackles on the offensive line for Arizona, I think there are a number of key matchups in this one that favor the San Francisco 49ers. Not only are you getting a very favorable price if you take the plus 5.5 points, I think the Niners are absolutely live to get the upset in this one. So however you like to attack it, it is pretty clear to me that the value is on the Niners.
Let's hope it's the Trey Lance show for the Niners playing the undefeated Arizona Cardinals, who are getting, in my opinion, a little too much love. All right, we've gone through our games of the week. We have identified a few matchups to look out for on Sunday, but now we move on to the Blitz, where you guys have about 10 seconds, maybe a little less, to give me your quick and honest opinions. Our producer, Brian, please put me in the middle here, and let's get rocking. We'll start with the Dolphins and the Buccaneers, the Blitz. Drew.
I'll take the plus 10 here very happily. This is a cluster injury on tap here for the Buccaneers. Is going to make it very tough for them to win by more than one score.
Don't disagree. We got to see Brian Flores going up against Tom Brady. This is a matchup he's seen before. I'm looking forward to it again. I would grab the points with the dog here.
Broncos at Steelers. Warren.
Well, we said no ugly games, but here we go. An ugly game are on the board. Not because it's not marquee teams, but just because of the style of play in this one. I don't like either team here. The side right now is down to a pick 'em. I really have no strong opinion one way or another.
Yeah, likely going to see Drew Lock here against Ben Roethlisberger. Going to be a pretty ugly game and a very easy pass.
Yeah, it's a pass for me for all of those reasons. Saints at the football team, Warren.
I'm going Saints here. Look, I backed the Washington football team last week. I twisted your arm, Sarah. You hated the play. It ended up getting there. Look, they should have had an easier time of it. I think the refs were terrible a little bit, but let's put that aside. I think Sean Payton, they have a bye next week after this game. They will not go into the bye losing to the Giants and to Washington in back-to-back weeks. I expect to bounce back.
Yeah, Saints very clearly the right side, in my opinion. This line should be 3 or higher.
Everyone that listens to our other show, Bet the Edge, no, I love the Saints this weekend. Titans at the Jaguars, Drew.
Ooh, I took the over here. I think realistically the Titans should be able to flex on this Jaguars defense that is a bottom 5 unit in my opinion. And on the other side of the ball, the Titans cannot manifest a pass rush. If you give Trevor Lawrence time, he's going to be able to find some form. I think this goes over 48.5.
That's an interesting cap from Drew. I don't disagree with it. Hadn't looked at that angle before. I definitely think that there's going to be some nice feelings in the pocket for Ryan Tannehill this week after getting absolutely destroyed by that Jets defense last week, but I have not done anything on this game.
Okay, final one. Here we go. Detroit Lions playing the Minnesota Vikings, Warren.
I think this is a get-right spot for the Minnesota Vikings this week. I think they're going to have a lot of success against this secondary. I think we're going to see Kirk Cousins look a lot better. I think Mike Zimmer's defense might look a little bit better. It hurts Detroit that they've got a number of injuries along that offensive line, which really was the strength of this team from any respect.
Yep. Obviously, the market agrees with Warren. Market agrees. I agree with the market. Minnesota's out to 9.5 here for the correct reasons. Injuries for Detroit are a huge issue, and hopefully you got Minnesota in a teaser earlier this week.
Yeah, sitting at -9.5. Don't forget to check out our daily podcast, Bet the Edge, powered by PointsBet, Monday through Friday, to arm you with the actionable information you need to wager with confidence. Drew Dinsick and myself, along with our NBC Sports EDGE team of experts, provide listeners with unique analysis, trends, projections, and picks. From the futures market to over-unders and point spreads, check out our edge betting tools and tune in to give yourself an extra edge with your wagers. PointsBet's head trader Jay Crouch are going to give us some insight on Week 5 lines when we return.
NBC Sports Edge Plus, home to everything fantasy, DFS, and betting, with premier tools and exclusive insights that are second to none. Get fantasy predictions, rankings, and betting trends, plus news and analysis from our experts. Play with confidence today. Visit NBCSportsEdge.com/learn.
Hi, it's Vaughn Dalzell here at NBC Sports Edge, bringing you one of my favorite NFL player props for Sunday's action. We're going to go with Rondale Moore, over 31.5 receiving yards in the Cardinals and Niners game. He's one of Kyler Murray's most trusted options. He's a spark plug and big play option for the Cardinals, averaging 11.7 yards per target on 3 receptions. He could already hit 30-plus yards in NBC's model. projects him to have 48 receiving yards, well over his total. You could see that at NBCSportsEdge.com. I am Von Delzell. Enjoy the games. Enjoy the sweat.
Another beauty on Sunday Night Football. And don't touch that dial.
That's sensational.
What a play.
Holy smokes.
Welcome to AP Bio. Ready to begin?
You're a tiger.
Uniforms promote conformity. You're going to turn these kids into cults.
We're really getting somewhere now.
Yeah. We are officially in a tornado warning.
We're all dead. No, we're dead.
Do not live in fear.
Dad!
Where's my son Jack?
Are you Mr. Griffin?
I suppose I am.
Dad?
Blitzing the board, getting you ready for week 5. And to get some insight from the bookmaker's perspective, we welcome in Jay Croucher, head trader at PointsBet. And Jay, off the top of the show, we talked a lot about the futures market. And from a handle and liability perspective, I am curious to get your thoughts in the MVP and Offensive Rookie of the Year races so far. I know you took a lot of action before the season started, but as of late, what are we looking at?
So what we're looking at recently is a lot of money on Kyler Murray, the favorite, and then also Matthew Stafford, who we're a lot longer than the rest of the market on with Stafford. We have been, where I think it goes back to what Drew says, where just winning an award coming out of the NFC West is just going to be so difficult because the schedule is so tough. You know, having to play those other 3 teams 6 times combined, it's going to be very well earned if someone like Stafford or Murray can win MVP, and likewise anyone winning Coach of the Year out of that division. And so that's why, you know, we really like Mahomes to win MVP. Just because, you know, he's starting to get the numbers with obviously a huge performance last week against Philadelphia. And there's just so much competition for MVP, and there are so many stats that the gun quarterbacks are accumulating. And then Offensive Rookie of the Year, our biggest liability is Justin Fields. That's got a lot to do with our presence in Chicago, where people want to back the story of Justin Fields. But, you know, now that he is the starter, now that, to Warren's point, he's going to have real plays called for him, he is starting to build some momentum. But, you know, we're a lot shorter than others on Trevor Lawrence. I think that probably there has been a bit too much of a departure from the season prior about Lawrence, where he came in as, you know, basically the favorite for this. And he started to find himself against Cincinnati, and he seems to be building some form. Things are slowing down for him, and we're much longer on Trey Lance, just because he's the only one, you know, of the big 5 quarterbacks who doesn't have that job locked down right now, with Jimmy G still breathing down his neck.
Jay, last week I asked you which game is going to have the biggest surprise that everybody is going to be talking about on Monday morning. And you said the New England Patriots. I was disappointed that you convinced Bill Belichick to kick the 56-yard field goal in the pouring rain. But that result obviously covered the spread and probably helped you guys out a ton. Who is it this week? What result is going to be the biggest surprise that nobody's predicting right now, but will surprise everybody that they'll be talking about on Monday?
Well, I'm going to go against Drew and his slick hair and say the Cincinnati Bengals, where I think, you know, one of the most interesting things in the NFL is cluster injuries, where outside of quarterback, a single injury isn't going to go too far to disrupting a line or a power rating, you know, outside of the exceptions like an Aaron Donald or a Devontae Adams. But really, the Packers now, they're starting to deal with a cluster with Zadarius Smith and Jair Alexander, perhaps their 2 most impactful defensive players. The offensive line without David Bakhtiari hasn't been good. The Cincinnati defense has been a little bit better than expected. I think Joe Burrow, you know, he had a really poor game against Chicago with those 3 interceptions and 3 passes. But outside of that, he's been fine, and he seems to be building, and he has weapons. So at home, I think Cincinnati, you know, I think that line is correct, where Aaron Rodgers, he's going to be favored, but I think that could be very close.
Yeah, not surprised. I kind of got the sense that that one is setting up for sort of the pros versus Joes game of the week, but I don't mind being on the side of Aaron Rodgers, especially with that short of a line. So not sweating that one. One that I am a little confused about, or a little surprised, I guess. The Tennessee Titans have taken some meaningful money. They are out to 4.5 right now. In the preseason, we expected this one to be about 2.5. There's obviously been a great to-do about the coaching situation in Jacksonville, which may be influencing this line. But do you get a sense of, what fair price is here for Tennessee Jacksonville? And do you think that this is one where you're taking, sort of lopsided action on the side of the favorite?
So there is lopsided action on Tennessee. It's over 90% of our handle is on the Tennessee minus, which is surprising after how they looked at the Jets. And a lot is going to depend on the availability and the health of Julio Jones and A.J. Brown, because without them, this Tennessee offense isn't that intimidating and is so reliant on Derrick Henry. I think with the Jags, a lot is being clouded by what is happening with their coach, and it's very difficult to quantify what that will actually mean on the field. But the main thing for the Jags is that Trevor Lawrence looked good against Cincinnati in his last start. And the game, he looked much more in his element. He didn't look panicked. He was making good throws, and he wasn't throwing the ball up for grabs, where he was leading the league in uncatchable passes through the first 3 weeks, and then it was much better and much more accurate on Thursday night against Cincinnati last week. So I think that will be the key, and so we'll be hoping that can continue, and that what's happening with Urban Meyer doesn't intrude too much on the field, and we'll certainly be ready for the Jags.
Jay, a lot of what you guys are looking for is the contrarian stuff, because the bettors are lining up on one side against you. What is one bet that you personally would make this weekend that is not contrarian, that would align a little bit more with what the public is thinking?
I like it. So how about the Kansas City Chiefs, the least possible contrarian team of all time, going with Patrick Mahomes, who's pretty well known. I think that the interesting thing about this game is that we've already seen it. We've already played this out in the AFC title game. Same team, same location, -3 again. And that game ended with Kansas City winning 38-15, taking a 38-15 lead before winning comfortably. And I think that the most interesting thing about Kansas City is how they just eradicate the idea of the opposing defense mattering, just because they are uncontainable. And so this Bills defense is really good, but a really good defense against Kansas City may not matter, because Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Tyreek Hill, they just do whatever they want, regardless of who is defending them. And then on the other side, this Buffalo offense has not looked like the offense that it was last year. The offensive line hasn't been good. Josh Allen has not looked like the MVP candidate that he was last season. So, our balanced panel is on Kansas City, and, the line is now trending towards 3, though it is still backed a bit Buffalo. But, this is the one that probably makes me a little bit nervous.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And actually, there's a lot more thoughts that I'd like to pick your brain on for this game specifically. But you made me think of another good question that is AFC related. All this attention on Buffalo, Kansas City as the AFC matchup of the week. But there is another matchup between the Browns and the LA Chargers that is equally impactful in terms of potential playoff seeding here. Very short line here with the Chargers only laying 2 at home. There's been sort of a nonstop wave of bad news injury-wise for the Browns all week, yet we have not seen this tick up to -3. Do you get the sense that eventually by the time we get here this weekend, this will tick out to 3, or do you think that there's enough sentiment that the Browns are the better team that this is going to kind of hang in this, no man's land?
I think no man's land is a pretty good chance of holding through the weekend, just because of the preseason prior on Cleveland and how they've reinforced that, playing well through the first month of the season. The Chargers are one of the most interesting teams in the league, because I think there's a chance that, at the end of the season, we'll look back and we'll think that, Justin Herbert is just a consensus top 5 quarterback in the league, because he makes throws that only really Mahomes can make. And this Chargers defense is getting better and better. Obviously, they have a great coach. And, with what everyone was talking about with Coach of the Year before with Brandon Staley, I think that, a good way to think about a market like Coach of the Year or a market like MVP, think about what price is the team to win the division, or what price are they to make the playoffs? And if they do win the division, then what price is Brandon Staley to win Coach of the Year, with the AFC West under his belt, with having beaten Patrick Mahomes to a division title? And right now the Chargers are +250, and +550 suggests that he'd be less than even odds to win Coach of the Year potentially if that happens. And so I think that is probably right, that he would be less than evens. And also he may not need to win the division as well to win Coach of the Year. If they go 12-5 and get a wild card, then he's very much in the mix. So that's just one way to look at awards markets.
Interesting way. And yeah, you are right. Probably the right way. He is the clear favorite as of now. We'll see how this shakes through for week 5. Last week, Warren said you came on, you talked about really needing the Patriots. And we always like to find out exactly what the book is rooting for. Is there a side you guys are positioning yourself points bet that you guys need something in particular?
So we definitely need the Jags. We'll need the Cincinnati Bengals. The Packers last week, we needed the Steelers as well, and the Packers covered that ultimately pretty easily, but we'll hope that this week it turns against the Dodgers. So those are two. The other one that is trending in a lopsided direction is New England, where for better or worse, we probably need Davis Mills. We're probably going to need Davis Mills a lot this year if he keeps on suiting up as the starter, because no one wants to bet on him, particularly after what he served up last week. Although, to be fair, if he keeps on serving that up, I don't think he's going to be the quarterback much longer.
Probably in agreement with that. Right now, they are 9-point underdogs. Jay, we got to talk on Sunday Night Football here. You mentioned it, and it does, in fact, seem like the football gods from above blessed us with another marquee Sunday Night Football matchup on NBC, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. What do you expect this handle to look like? How would you now compare it to what we saw from the Patriots and Bucks last Sunday on primetime?
So I think it'll be slightly less than Pats Bucks just because of all the narratives behind that game, which are unmatched. But this comes as close as anything because these are, we see them as the two best teams in the AFC. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes in primetime is must-see television, so there will be no shortage of interest. And then in terms of how we expect to see the breakdown of handle and who people will be betting on, right now we have close to 70% of our handle on the Chiefs spread. But conversely, we have more people backing the Bills money line. And that's typically how this goes when you have a line that's 2.5 or 3. People will back the favorite of the spread, and then people won't really care about the 1 or 2 points on the spread if they like the underdog, and they'll just bet the money line because they're getting a bigger price. So that's the breakdown. With my own sentiment, as we talked about, I hope that goes in the Bills' favor because I think the Chiefs are a very good chance here.
Jay, the player prop market's super interesting. Sorry to cut you off, Drew. You can ask the next question, but I got one for you. What do you anticipate the player prop market looking like for this? This is the highest total on the board. We're looking at 56.5 right now. So is it one of those situations where you're just taking all overs on the player prop market? What's that shaping up to look like?
We are taking all overs on the player prop market. With a game like this, with the highest total of the year, with Mahomes in prime time, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, that it's loaded with star power. It's not too often that you see, two quarterbacks passing yards lines, both over 300, but that's the environment that we're in now. And that's perhaps why, it shades the Kansas City being favorite because they have a slightly more explosive offense, but they also have a defense that is much more prone to allowing explosions. So it should be a really high scoring game, and lots of yards and stats are going to be up for grabs for the likes of Diggs, Hill, Kelsey, and both the quarterbacks.
Fantastic breakdown all around. I cannot wait for Sunday Night Football. Have you guys made any positioning in your futures market between the Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs that is anticipating this outcome? Because I can imagine looking at the schedule that if the Bills get this win, the 1 seed is pretty much theirs. And on the other side, the Kansas City could win this game and still ultimately lose the AFC West to the Chargers. So this is an interesting kind of high leverage game in terms of the ultimate play, the seeding in the AFC. Is it too early to think about that stuff, or are you guys anticipating that when you line your AFC odds?
Yeah, no, definitely not too early. This game's going to have huge ramifications, particularly now with the playoff structure. The 1 seed is so important and much more important than it was 2-3 years ago and beyond. But also an interesting way to look at that from a futures perspective is in terms of the awards, because with teams like Buffalo and Kansas City, when you've got players like Mahomes and Allen for MVP or Sean McDermott for Coach of the Year, it kind of becomes like a college football playoff system where if you have more than 1 loss or 2 losses, then it becomes really difficult. And if Mahomes loses this game and goes to 2-3, then his MVP case, he almost has to run the table from there. And likewise, Sean McDermott, if he's dropping a second game, then he doesn't have much to play with for Coach of the Year. So I know that's a bit more abstract, but I think those are things to look out for as well, because these are pretty compelling races.
I'm just going to say I like the Chiefs, and I hope that's kind of what you need. And a lot of Bills money comes in, because I have realized with your time on the show and when Warren kind of grills you in the best way possible, I find out what you need, and I do, in fact, try to tail that. Jay, you're the best. Thank you so much. As always, love having you on. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, everyone.
PointsBet has an easy way to take a shot on Sunday Night Football every week, and that includes this week's huge Bucs-Patriots game. For all PointsBet customers, new and old, your first bet on Tampa, New England is risk-free. You either win your bet or get it back with up to $20 in risk-free bets. Love having Jay on, because especially for the Sunday Night Football handicap and just hearing where the money's coming in, because that does make a difference. Obviously, two-way action. A lot of people love the Bills. And for a while, the Chiefs were sitting at 2.5, but now some more Chiefs love has come in. Drew, I'll start with you on this handicap. And for this game, the AFC Championship rematch between the Buffalo Bills and Kansas City Chiefs, now sitting at Chiefs laying 3 at home in Arrowwood. What are you thinking?
Well, this has been a fascinating market to watch all week long. There's been some great push-pull from some of the professional players who have very different opinions about who is the better team here, which is pretty fascinating to me. If you take in a lot of the data we've gotten so far this year, you would believe that the Buffalo Bills have kind of completely revitalized their defense, and that the Kansas City Chiefs defense is, is among the worst in the league. However, I personally think that that is a much greater reflection of who they have played than the actual strength of those units. I think the Buffalo Bills defense is coming in a hair overrated. And on the flip side, the Kansas City Chiefs defense matches up fairly well against this Buffalo Bills team, which is basically Kansas City light, at least the way they run their offense. So this is going to be a very, very good matchup. I personally like the Kansas City Chiefs here a decent amount. And I look back to the most recent game between these two teams in the AFC Championship game. I think about those lines in particular, and the Chiefs closing a very healthy 3, not a lean 3. Right now, you can lay the Chiefs -3 and get plus money on that play. But back in January, you had to lay a hefty price to lay -3. In fact, on the money line, they were about -175, and now they're closer to about -150. And to me, the fact that they are cheaper now than they were then, Pat Mahomes is healthier now than he was then, the offensive line is healthier now than they were then, and they are still being somewhat underrated coming into this matchup is surprising to me, considering how amazing the Kansas City Chiefs have been in terms of winning exactly these types of games over the last handful of years. I know that they have not been great at covering spreads, at least in modern memory, but this is a Kansas City Chiefs team that I do think is going to have a great night on Sunday Night Football. I laid the -2.5 here at a little bit higher price. And if you're looking at the current market, I think you can honestly be patient. You can wait for the best price, whether you like Chiefs or Buffalo Bills. If you like the Buffalo Bills, definitely do not just take a 2.5 if that's what you see. You'll get a chance to fire a 3 at some point, and then vice versa. I do think at some point you'll see another wave of Bills money come in, and you may get another shot at Chiefs -2.5. So this is a really competitive marketplace in terms of who's betting what. But ultimately, I do think the Chiefs are the right side, and I think we're going to emerge from this weekend with sort of the market expectation of, oh yeah, the Chiefs are the best team in the NFL. Oh yeah, this ought to be the Super Bowl favorite and the AFC favorite. And so if you have any of that spirit and you have not fired into any of those futures markets, in addition to Chiefs at -2.5, I think it's fair to look and shop around and find some prices in that regard as well.
Chiefs have had the Buffalo Bills number. Warren, 5 out of the last 6. Chiefs came out on top, obviously 2-0 against Buffalo. Last season, a lot's been made of Josh Allen not living up to last year and what he was able to do. Does this fall on the Buffalo Bills in comeback mode, or what do you see happening in this game on Sunday Night Football?
Well, I think that the Kansas City Chiefs, let's start there. They need to get out the gates faster. This is a team that did start fast against the Chargers, but weren't actually scoring points. They were turning the ball over, making too many mistakes. And then they did have some success against the Philadelphia Eagles, but never really were able to get the Philadelphia Eagles out of their preferred game plan. The Chiefs for too long sort of play around with their food in the first half of the game and then finally get to business after that. They got to come out quickly and set the tone in this game, in my opinion. On the other side of the ball, it is very difficult to think that the Kansas City Chiefs are really going to run away with this game with the way that their defense lacks and the Buffalo Bills' strengths here. the Buffalo Bills are going to have to get their tight end a little bit more involved. I do think that there are things that they can do that they learned from that matchup last season that they can apply to this game. Look, the Buffalo Bills basically spent the entirety of the offseason game planning for this very moment on Sunday Night Football. There's no two ways around it. They went out and tried to get players in the draft that could get pressure on the quarterback, just like they saw Tampa Bay do in the Super Bowl against this Kansas City Chiefs offensive line. Drew makes a good point. The Chiefs offensive line is a little bit healthier than it was at that point in the season. And this Bills team has played some pretty bad offenses, some pretty terrible opposing quarterbacks. This is going to be a huge step up in class for this Buffalo Bills defense. I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be a back and forth game. I'm curious to see if we do end up getting to this total. I couldn't look to bet the under here, even though my model doesn't set the total at this level. But I think this is going to be a great back and forth game. Another classic for Sunday Night Football that will ultimately be a lot higher scoring than the last Sunday Night Football that game that we saw in Foxborough in the pouring down rain. But it's definitely on the Buffalo Bills to make those adjustments. Specifically, stop kicking field goals. Sean McDermott, I don't want to see your kicker out on the football field unless it's for an extra point and that clock is stopped. That was absolutely absurd what they were doing last game around, and it cannot happen this game if they stand a chance.
Okay, noted for Sean McDermott. If you had the guts, I should say, to take the under on this game, kudos to you, a brave individual indeed. It's time to get to our fan vote game. We asked you, the viewers, to help us decide which game to do a deeper dive. We put that Twitter poll out on @NBC Sports Bet. And as you see, the winner was the Giants in the Cowboys, where this line opened at the Cowboys laying 7.5, moved around a little bit, still seeing that the total certainly has come up. Opened on the board 49.5. We're looking at 52s right now. Warren, really quickly here, what do you like in this game?
If I had to go with the side, I'm probably going with the Giants. Away from home, they tend to be undervalued a little bit. Obviously, we saw how huge of a game that was. Dallas coming and winning that game against the Carolina Panthers, a game that they trailed at halftime. But I look at Daniel Jones. I don't love him. You look at this offense, you don't love it. You look at Jason Garrett, what's to like there? You look at the coach, the rest of the coaching staff, not really much to like there. And yet this line is dropping a little bit from the 7.5 down to 7. I do see a little bit of value there, grabbing that 7 points with the Giants. We saw potentially a worse Giants team play these guys last year when Dallas was rolling at the start of the season. And the Giants were doing okay to start that game, but I have not done anything side or total yet on this one.
What about you, Drew?
I did not play the side or total either. However, the Dallas is a very appealing teaser leg. I gotta tell you, this Giants team is giving up. They surprised the Saints last week. Congratulations. The Saints played a very horrific game defensively. I don't know that I am ready to get involved with Daniel Jones and Jason Garrett as an offensive powerhouse just yet. However, the element that Daniel Jones brings with the running attack might be pretty effective against this Dallas defense, which I also don't have a ton of respect for. The correct play, if you will, was the over on the open. This is up from 49.5 up to about 52 right now. 52 for me is fair. 7.5 is a little short. I would have made this about an 8-point game. So I don't mind teasing Dallas down across 7, across 3 if it closes around 7.5.
More on this game right at the end of the show. But for now, our NBC Sports Predictor app powered by PointsBet is giving you a chance to win $160,000 this week, and it's free to play. Here are just a few of the contests. Friday, MLB playoff action, Irish Pick'em for Notre Dame against Virginia Tech, and $100,000 is up for grabs on Sunday Night 7 when the Chiefs visit the Bills. Download today from your app store or visit NBCsports.com/predictor. We're going to take a quick break, but still more to come, including our best bets right after this.
Don't leave money on the table. No matter your sport, the Predictor app has got you covered. Tens of thousands in cash prizes up for grabs every week. And it's free to play. Download the NBC Sports Predictor app powered by PointsBet now.
Corey Parson back again, this time with a futures bet you might be interested in. Right now on PointsBet, Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver Tyreek Hill is 25-1 to win the NFL's Offensive Player of the Year award. Hill is second in receptions, second in receiving yards, and second in receiving touchdowns. And I would dare say that Tyreek Hill is the best skill position player in the NFL. You may want to hop on these odds right now. Once again, I'm Corey Parson. Enjoy Week 5.
Another beauty on Sunday Night Football. Don't touch that dial.
That's sensational.
What a play.
Holy smokes.
Welcome to AP Bio. Ready to begin?
You're a tiger.
Uniforms promote conformity. You're going to turn these kids into cult.
We're really getting somewhere now.
Yeah. We are officially in a tornado warning.
We're all dead. No, we're dead.
Do not live in fear.
Dad!
Where's my son, Jack?
Are you Mr. Griffin?
I suppose I am.
Dad?
Gearing up for week 5 here on Blitzing the Board, and it is time for Pearls of Wisdom. Now, last week I talked about the Chiefs and the possibility of them covering. That came home, trying to find a little value here in my Pearls of Wisdom. And I'm going to focus on the Dallas Cowboys, who are riding 3 straight wins into week 5, where they are now laying 7.5 points against the Giants. We have seen this line move from 7.5, come down to 7, back up to 7.5. The Cowboys are a covering machine. They're 4-0 against the number this season. History would tell us to like America's team in this spot. The Cowboys have put up 30 or more points against the Giants in 5 of their last 8 matchups. The Giants have lost 7 of their last 8 games against the Dallas Cowboys. New York is playing consecutive road games and now facing a defense, whether people think they're overrated or not, they lead the league with 8 interceptions. If this gets back down to 7, I certainly like that against the number. And Drew talked about it on our last segment here on the show, teasing this. I love this in a teaser leg, and I will get to that in our best bets. But guys, that is my Pearls of Wisdom. You look back about these 2 teams in the NFC in this matchup, NFC East rather. History says take America's team.
No disagreement with me. Let's go Cowboys.
We're going to be rooting for the Cowboys as we now get to our best bets. And Drew, I will start with you here. Your best bets on the board. Let me hear them.
So we went through in pretty good detail. I'm taking the square. Green Bay -3. I will grab the points with the San Francisco 49ers, who I think are very live for the upset. I laid the points with the Kansas City Chiefs, who I think will prove to be the best team in the AFC, if not the NFL, this weekend on Sunday Night Football. And I grabbed the Cleveland money line at plus money in what should be a very underrated, excellent game on the slate.
Okay, those are your 4 plays. Warren, let's hear it. Best bet.
Well, with regard to Drew, I don't disagree with the 49ers, and I love the Browns in a teaser, so those 2 may end up on my card as well. But for my best bet for this show, I'm going with the under 47. We discussed it right off the top of the block in the Browns game. I think that this game features a lot of running, features some nice, interesting defensive combinations geared to slowing down the opposing offenses. And I think that we'll be playing inside the phone booth a little bit here when each team gets the ball. I like under 47.
My best bets are going to be San Francisco and Trey Lance, the 5.5 in agreement with Drew there. I like the New Orleans Saints to take care of business in a bounce back win. Sean Payton has proven to be really good off of a loss, covering the number 65% of the time as a head coach coming off of an L. And of course, that's what I do. I give out teasers on the show. Dallas -1. I talked about them for my Pearls of Wisdom. I love them in a teaser spot. I like them -7. So I took Dallas -1. And let's get the Cleveland Browns plus 7.5 through that key number. Now, listen, you guys are the professional bettors. So before we close the show, rate my picks 1 to 10. Somebody tell me.
Oh, you got a 10. And honestly, can I steal Corey Parsons' pick of Tyreek Hill 25-1 Offensive Player of the Year? That is a steal. That is a great number. Great job by Corey.
Warren, you're not going to rate my pick? All right, fine.
I like your pick, Sarah. You've become sharper and sharper as the days go by on this show. So love hearing your insight. You're always giving out good plays. I like them.
Sharper and sharper. We're going to end it there. Now that you're all set to make your wagers, don't forget to set your fantasy lineups. Check out A Good Football Show Fantasy Kickoff every Sunday at noon Eastern on the NBC Sports Edge YouTube channel, leading right into kickoff. As Patrick Doherty and the Edge crew cover all of the inactives and late breaking news, break down the key fantasy matchups, and take your start-sit questions right before lineups lock. Go to NBCSportsEdge.com/YouTube to subscribe now. That does it for us here on Bet the Edge, Blitzing the Board, powered by PointsBet for Warren Sharp, Drew Dinsick, all of us here with NBC Sports. I'm Sara Perlman, and we wish you nothing but the best of luck with all your wagers. And make sure to stay tuned on our YouTube channel right here for a good football show coming up next.